Welcome to this morning's live webinar on manifesting your true Dharma. I will do a prayer of gratitude. Then I will do a very tiny overview of what is energy healing. Then I'll do a recap of yesterday's session because today's session builds on yesterday's session. And then we'll dive into today's live webinar. All right, thanks for being with me. Here we go. Thank you. Thank you to the source of creation for being everything, for being this life healing webinar, for being all of us, for being all of our ancestors, and for the role of our ancestors in the manifestation of our bodies, our physiologies, with deep gratitude to all of them. Thank you to the eternal tradition of wisdom for anchoring and holding the flow of the seed and all the laws of nature around the flow of information, for allowing knowledge to flow. Thank you to all the forms of consciousness that are responsible for the healing process. And may our session today be blessed with efficiency and precision. May we go right to the core of this issue and create and experience the healings that are most important for everyone's highest and best experience and evolution, everyone's evolution. Thank you. All right. So, energy healing is a process whereby we use attention, which is our nice tool that we have. Everybody's got attention. Everybody knows how to focus it. So the principle of energy healing is to focus that attention in the most intelligent and efficient and useful manner in order to produce specific results in the outer expression of life. So what we're doing is we're focusing attention down into the inner expression, the inner levels of life, which are the foundation or the fundamental of the outer expression of life. So what we're doing is in the energy healing, we're going to the core. We go to the seed. If there's a symptom on the surface, we can use that symptom as a launching point to follow back to its source, and then putting attention in at the source of that experience, that symptom, affect change. And attention affects change in anything it falls upon, because attention naturally is wholeness. It is that form of being that we possess and we have control over with our intention, which is the stuff of which everything is made. Pure consciousness, pure perception, pure intelligence, pure being. So when we focus our attention, pure being comes through the channels of awareness and falls upon that whichever our attention is going to, and it activates and enlivens, it wakes it up. It wakes up totality and wholeness, and it helps resolve imbalances. It helps bring completions. It helps bring completions to areas where there's some blind spot or lack. So yeah, so that's what energy healing is fundamentally. And what we're doing together in these webinars is we're kind of pooling our resources, our attention resources, you could say, as a collective. And we're working together in tandem to address some of the bigger issues, because it's really common that when a person gets a symptom on the surface, that the underlying seed of that symptom has threads or tie-ins to larger expressions of imbalance in the collective. So if one person with their one symptom or a few symptoms tries to follow back to the seed, it's not uncommon to find oneself faced with some kind of big, huge, dark, like intense thing. And any one person trying to look at something like that or trying to resolve it on their own could be a laborious process, or it could just be outside the range of the resources that they have. Whereas as a group, as a collective, it's as think of it as if we have multiple points of perspective on any issue that we look at, because each one of us is looking from our individual point, right? So each of us with our individual points of perspective focuses on the larger issue, which can be at a collective level. And from that perspective, it's possible to get a nice handle on whatever that imbalance is, or whatever that underlying energy is behind the symptoms that, of course, manifest up for everybody in different ways, right? And working on that from a collective perspective, we have a lot more energy and resource and creativity and intelligence to apply. And so as we do that, it's easier to take out those bigger challenges that many of us on our own, we try to look at those situations and we can't do it. It feels too big. But when we do it as a group, it goes into perspective and it becomes small and becomes easy to deal with. So that's one of the principles behind the live webinars, is that we're working together as a collective to address the bigger issues that are fundamental to many of the problems that face our society as a whole. And okay, I'm just going to take a drink of water. It's morning for me where I am. All right. So that's what energy healing is. Now, the recap from yesterday, we looked at Dharma. So this webinar is about manifesting your true Dharma. So we looked at Dharma from several different angles, including definitions of Dharma and that sort of thing. I didn't really talk that much about the manifesting side of that title. We talked more about Dharma in general and the different forms of Dharma. There's, for example, cosmic Dharma, collective Dharma, and individual Dharma. And in the field of collective Dharma, that includes vocational Dharma. And there have been several questions that came up about that today, so I'll be sure to address that. We also took a look at the relationship between being able to live your full Dharma and karma, because karma is a structure. We looked at karma in terms of it forming some of the seeds of imbalance that sit way deep in the system behind the challenges that are faced, and how these entanglements of little threads coming back to us from all ancient times past, our behaviors get, if you think of them like a seed, a thick entanglement of karma. Around the seed, the shell or the hull is usually made of really intense feelings or emotions, often scary or unpleasant feelings or emotions. And so we talked a bit about penetrating through that wall of emotion to get down to the initial entanglement of karmic threads, and then how to start unfurling those, to unwinding them, so that the knot or seed that's at the source of imbalance is undone gracefully and completely, and in a way that uplifts and promotes evolution for literally every aspect of the process, including the threads themselves, which are essentially life force. They're life beings. So that was part of yesterday. One of the important things that happened yesterday was our collective focused in on the heart of Dharma, the actual fundamental inner core of Dharma. And I think that would be a really good place for us to start today. And I'm just asking being, you guys, I'm just following your lead basically. So I'm just reflecting off of the collective here to see if it's a good place to start. And as many questions came in, and as I reflect off of the collective, it reminds me of a question that came up. So we'll look at that for a minute. She said, could you speak more today in today's webinar about how you use your body and central nervous system as a mirror? That was interesting. So everything is divine being manifested. Everything is the manifestation of being. At the surface of creation, we have a lack of symmetry, basically, that the being in its total, complete form, unmanifest, infinite, qualityless being is perfectly symmetrical, and all the complementary pairs of opposites are together in perfect balance. But in order for the relative to rise up, the balance has to be broken. So even though each one of us is a manifestation of being, there are differences, slight differences from one to the next, because that core relationship of the complementary pairs of opposites has to go slightly off of its kilter, so to say, in order to allow something physical to manifest, basically. Or even something non-physical, like the subtler levels, our belief systems and the subtler structures of self. They're all present because being symmetrical has broken. So because the aspect of divinity is present in every particle, even when that symmetry is broken, because of that, totality is contained in each part of self. And the subtler levels of our being are shared. They're like, we have our individual, like my physical body doesn't actually, overlap with anybody else's physical body. There's always going to be a layer of atoms in there or something. But at the subtle levels, our beings do overlap, particularly at the causal and astral levels. We share a lot in common. So in this physiology, the nervous system is able to access the level of perception that is experienced at that causal and astral levels, which are very deep, they're very profound, and even the being level can access levels where our experience and our realities overlap. And so what I do, this is how I act as a mirror, I put my attention on the area where there's an overlap. So right now in our collective, looking out into our collective and the level where every one of us overlaps with each other. And then what I do is I just take a scan of the physiology and I read, like, where is the attention going and where does it want to go in order to direct the flow in the most useful place. Like, what's the most evolutionary direction that we can take? So the awareness is going down and feeling into that causal level. I call that the causal level, where we're like our bodies are like a big ocean of awareness. So in that level, where does it want to go? Where does it want to go? And what I'm feeling as soon as I ask the question and innocently drop the question back into the silence of my own being, an answer comes. And so in this physiology, I'm feeling a lot of energy down in the third chakra area. I would say a big, between second and fifth, between second and fourth. That whole area seems to be kind of waking up. And I'm noticing, and so I'm like, okay, that's where the attention is. Well, what's there? So we look and see and take a read on it. See, I'm telling you like my experience just as it's coming out. Feels like a big, I'm going to say block, but I don't think block is quite the right word. A big collective of very intense energy is there, and an emotional, and it's pretty easy to get the emotional read on it because the heart is good at interpreting emotions and feelings. And it's a pretty fierce energy. Feels like an intense energy is there in sort of the belly area of the body. Maybe because I didn't eat breakfast. No, everything's connected to everything. but I drank water. So yeah, there's this kind of fierce energy. And that area, then I use inference. That's the next thing. I use inference. And through inference, we know that this area of the body, this third chakra area of the body, is where we access our personal power. And the second chakra is like a creative center. So there's like our creativity, and then it meets with the resources, the power, to allow the creative ideas to flow forward and to make their way to the surface. So first thing is awareness has to get down to the level where everything's connected. Then, so this is 1, 2, 3, right? Everything's connected. And then asking what's the most appropriate place I can put my attention right now for everybody's highest and best good. And then allowing that question to kind of drop down or fall down into the field of unmanifest source of creation. And the unmanifest source of creation, that's the perspective that's like the big overview, brings back a direction. And then the body scan, because our bodies, they tell such amazing stories about the nature of the universe. Every system is a reflection of that divine dialogue or that divine interaction, divinity self-interacting to create the creation. So every system is an expression of that in some way or another. I've talked a lot about that past webinars. So the awareness will naturally, in the body scan, the awareness will naturally settle in some particular area. And then each area has its specialty. So then inference is used to determine what the specialty of that area is. And then from there, we can just dive. So the power center in the solar plexus. Now we're coming into our session today. That is the fundamental for manifestation. And I had the thought when I was thinking about how things went last night and where we're going today, that one of the areas that we didn't really cover yesterday was how do we manifest? How do we manifest our Dharma? We talked so much about Dharma, but the manifestation side. So this energy center in the solar plexus area is our like one of the fundamental tools for manifesting anything. So I'm looking out into the collective and I'm checking into everyone's third chakra area. Hello to the third chakras. And last night, the heart area received an integrated experience of alignment with the heart of Dharma. So we went into the heart of Dharma and we experienced what the very seed or core of Dharma actually feels like, that energy signature. And then that was able to upgrade the wisdom of the heart. Now we can use that seed, that wisdom in the heart, to come together with the power in the solar plexus area to start to push forward that true Dharma. Push forward the true Dharma. And maybe that word push is a little bit too harsh. We don't ever want to really push against something that is resisting. What we want to do is allow that to come forward. So I'm looking at the interface between the heart intelligence, the intelligence of the heart area, and the intelligence of the solar plexus area. And what's really interesting to me about this is you've heard me talk many times about the 3 Mahamarmas, right? So we were working in the heart, big heart center area, 1, 2, 3. But when I was just now looking at the solar plexus area, remember I said it was between the 2nd chakra and the 4th chakra? I was actually seeing a kind of an energy center there around that chakra. So not just the 3rd chakra, but a whole, like almost a secondary marma, like you've got your 3 primary colors, right? Red, blue, and yellow. And then you've got like the in-betweensy colors, green, purple, and orange. So the same idea that there's a, there's the 3rd chakra, but then there's also kind of a big energy center around that 3rd chakra. Almost everyone has a little leakage in that area. That's what's coming, almost everyone. You know, our potential to create is so magical, and it's so huge, and it's so vast. And we create beautiful things in our lives. But the amazing thing is that with all that we create, our potential to create is even greater. It's so great, in fact, that I feel that for a lot of us, it's a form of seva, which for those of you unfamiliar with that word, it's a form of service. service to the universe or service to the creator, that we give a certain amount of our manifesting potential to the to the universe, to the collective. There's a certain amount for each person of our personal power, our manifesting potential, which ends up not being used for our own personal investment. We don't invest it in ourselves. We end up just sort of offering it out more to the collective. When we offer to the collective, we're essentially feeding the deeper levels of our own being, because our universe is actually the manifestation or expression of our inner reality. So that's good. So it's some of it, in other words, some of it comes to the surface as something tangible, and some of it doesn't. Some of it folds back into the more abstract or universal levels of creation. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at the balance between how much of our personal power moves forward to the relative to manifest things for us in the relative, and how much of it is pulled backward into the source of creation. There's a point of optimal balance between those two flows. And when the point of optimal balance is stabilized, the result is that the energies move both towards the relative and towards the absolute in their totality. And I know this is going to sound, this is a little abstract, so bear with me. But if the balance is broken and some of the energies are going toward the relative level, this is our bubble diagram, right? Some are going up to the surface and some are going down. Then it's kind of like always going to be a proportion, like 50-50 or 40-60 or 30-70, like that. But when the point of optimal balance is stabilized, then what happens is 100% moves throughout the whole system. All of it's able to move in both directions at the same time. That's what I'm understanding right now. This is a new understanding for me based on being with you. Thank you. This, I wouldn't have known this otherwise. So what's happening in the third chakra area is a stabilization of that balance. And anytime we take a read and the awareness goes to a certain spot and it's like, oh, this is where we need to put attention. The reason that being will direct our attention to that spot is because that's the next spot that's ready to embody, perfectly embody divinity, perfectly embody source. The relative field is broken symmetry, the source is perfect symmetry, but in the end, the process that's taking place is for the perfect symmetry of source to completely 100% totally embody that broken symmetry area. Totally 100%, in spite of the fact that those seem like opposites, in spite of the fact that the intellect goes, yeah, but that's illogical. It doesn't matter. What's important is that at this finest level of creation, an integration occurs between the complementary opposites, and it allows those complementary opposites to work together to support evolution. So they may seem like opposites, but actually they come together in a wholeness. When you get the two opposites together, you get totality or wholeness, right? And then the transformation that occurs is that infinitely silent source of unmanifest qualityless being expands. It expands. It becomes something bigger than what it was before. But it does have to, it does have to transcend a bit some of our usual tools, like our intellect, because the intellect says, yes, but it's either white or it's black, but it can't be both. But it actually, as we know, the world is shades of gray. Oh, shades of gray. So shades of gray. So the reality is the totality is contained in every part, even all the parts, all the parts, all the parts. So that's what's happening in the third chakra. is that there's a stabilization of a quality of balance there in the way our power flows both out to the surface and down into the silent depths of creation. And that balance is there. It promotes a kind of more like a circular flow, if that makes sense, more like a looping flow that's utilizing the full potential of that area of the physiology to go in both directions at the same time, 100%, or you could say 200%. Maybe we could say that's the foundation for the concept of 200% of life, 100% in both directions. Stabilizing. So I'm looking for the stability. And of course, when bringing this all back to Dharma, what stabilizes Dharma is truth. Certainly in this age where we are now, what stabilizes Dharma is truth. Stabilizes. We talked more about that yesterday, if you want to go back and look at that. The section on the bull of Dharma. So what I feel is happening, I'm doing it again, right? I'm doing the read on my awareness goes out to the group, it reflects back on the body, I take the read, and I say, where's my awareness going? And the awareness is going to that point of balance and going right deep, deep into the point of balance. And what's happening now is a refinement of the balance. So the balance is becoming a deeper expression of balance, more finer, 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 finer. And I love the combination of the energy frequency of refinement coming together with the energy frequency of balance, because it's so incredibly beautiful and it's so incredibly important for us as we navigate our way through this next 6 to 9 month period. Because when we're dealing with really large electromagnetic or gravitational influences, which are working with each other in a way which is a little bit like not smooth, we could say not smooth, then our ability to walk the razor's edge is all the more important. So it's not just about manifesting, it's about doing so in a way which is in the highest, we could say, in the highest way. And that actually brings me to another question. And usually I save the questions for the end, but so many questions came in, and I love them all. And I felt as if yesterday's session was like so abstract that it might be more valuable for everyone anyway if we have a little more practical approach in today's session. So here's another question. I don't understand much about Dharma, but I wonder, can one's lack of forgiveness and guilt prevent one living one's Dharma? And when I first read this question, I thought, oh, is she asking if her lack of forgiveness and having a lot of guilt prevent her from living her Dharma? But I realized the way the question, as I read it to you, is actually worded is lack of forgiveness / guilt. So in other words, not feeling guilty. So because everything is connected and related to everything, we can always say, yes, there's a relation between, not having a lot of forgiveness or guilt, or having not a lot of forgiveness and having guilt, however we best want to look at that, because it can apply differently for different people. But it can stop the flow of Dharma. But my experience is, first of all, that forgiveness is one of the softening influences in creation. So anytime we can forgive, no matter how absolutely terrible things and situations have been, anytime we can forgive, that's going to help our own ability to move forward on our path. However, if you feel, remember I was saying the energy in the third chakra felt a little fierce this morning? And I can tell you yesterday when I was preparing and I was vacuuming, I always have experiences vacuuming, getting ready for these events. But I was feeling a lot of emotional feelings that were coming up that were kind of rough, you know, and kind of like out of left field, like they're, you know how sometimes it's obvious, oh, I'm responding to that experience, that's why I'm feeling angry or whatever. No, I'm just vacuuming, like nothing strange about that. Oh, beautiful. To all panelists, forgiveness is the fragrance of the flower that has been cut. Oh, so sweet. Thank you for sharing that, darling. Yeah, so that this fierce feeling was coming up. And what I realized was the forgiveness had to be self-directed, because fierce feelings have a lot of energy in them. And sometimes they come up because you need to get off your duff and do things. And so what I realized is that we have a tendency, many of us have a tendency, not everybody, not the disagreeable people, but those of us who are very highly agreeable tend to feel a little guilty if we're not being super compassionate and super forgiving. So what that does is it puts a person in a position where they become exploited, because they're so busy being forgiving to everyone who's exploiting them that they keep being exploited, rather than letting those natural feelings of, well, that's just not right, letting that feeling come up to the surface and initiate an action that will help bring life into a better balance, so that one is no longer being exploited, basically. That is a good example of moving through those emotional energies that sit at the seed of the karmic imbalance, because it is healthy and natural to receive and accept one's own feelings, right? So if the anger is there, it's like, yeah, okay, I don't like this thing. It's really making me angry. But then this is where the Dharma comes in. The action as it comes to the surface still needs to be dharmic. Just because I forgive myself and I accept the fact that sometimes I'm really upset about things, so some situations, especially if they're long-term situations, maybe a long-term abuse situation or something like that, that when the action comes to the surface, it still has to be life supporting for everybody. Life supporting for everybody. So that requires a certain amount of personal, control over one's person. We have to have a certain ability to be able to speak carefully and well, and this is the razor's edge. We need to be able to walk the razor's edge and say the words that are supportive and take the actions that are devotional, even when the feeling inside could be unpleasant or uncomfortable feeling. It's an advanced lesson, everybody. It's an advanced lesson. We don't come into the world usually with that one already mastered, right? The baby just feels uncomfortable and they're just like, ah. And then they have to learn later, no, you can't just cry. You have to use words. And then later they learn, well, you can't just have a fit. You have to bargain. If you want something from me, you can't just threaten me. You have to bargain or whatever. So this is the download that's coming in, is how to walk the razor's edge. And it's already come into our bodies in the form of the balance in the third chakra area. So you own it already at sort of deeply experiential levels. But now we're going to extend that. That seems to be extending into more of alignment that balance, more alignment with true Dharma, our true Dharma. And the true Dharma is defined as this beautiful, stable feeling, which is embedded in the heart. And for those who weren't with me yesterday, you still got that. You get that download, which is part of yesterday's session. Of course, you get the recording, so you can always watch and be with it as we're going through that process. But Dharma, as I pointed out yesterday, is connected with the laws of nature, with the laws, and that includes laws of action and reaction. So that's that stability, that action and reaction. Laws of nature are providing the context for where exactly is the razor's edge. Where exactly is the razor's edge, and how do we traverse that? And I don't mean literally physically walking, right? We're doing it in the way we bring action to the surface. It's just a tiny little slice. What comes to the surface is a tiny slice of the inner experience. And that tiny slice then is aligned with Dharma. And one of the definitions she says here, she doesn't understand much about Dharma. One of the parts of the definition of Dharma coming up from yesterday is the dharmic action or speech is that which promotes evolution and does not have negative consequences. So when we're in tune with Dharma, we're promoting or producing actions that are life-supporting. So with regards to forgiveness and guilt, I think the number one issue is for oneself, to forgive oneself, even if you have feelings which aren't completely smooth or whatever. Because understanding that those feelings, thank you, sweetheart, somebody else is getting some benefit from this too, because even those feelings, even the rougher feelings, they have reason to be. They are the great motivators. They are the great power. They're part of the whole third chakra area. Remember, this is the area of the body that makes heat, that allows us to metabolize food, right? So all those hot feelings like anger and frustration and all those, what they do in the body is the liver, it filters out toxins, right, from the blood, and then it produces these chemical materials that are very, very hot. And they go into the gallbladder and it becomes bile, which is very hot. And you need bile to metabolize food. You need it to break down the particles of the food. So that power is remastered in order to promote an evolutionary effect. We can't get rid of it. You can't say, oh, I wish I lived in a universe where there was no anger. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's there because it serves a purpose when it is oriented properly, when it's brought into balance. All right, I hope that answers the question. Here's a beautiful question. Could we do a healing for everyone to get support from the environment so the manifestation of Dharma happens smoothly and joyfully? Beautiful question, and very similar to the one we ended on yesterday. So to get support from the environment, okay, this is good. So this first part of the healing session where we opened up 100% of the potential to harness our own power, going in both the inner and outer direction, also causes, it creates a condition in the system whereby, and I'm just reading this now because we only just did this healing, so I'm learning right along with you guys. I just get to be the mouth. It creates a condition whereby our beings, the very existence of our beings is, you could say, feeding. We're feeding the environment. Now, it's interesting that anytime any of us experiences directly, consciously experiencing the source of creation, that our bodies start to produce a very, very refined substance known as Soma. And Soma has an extremely nourishing effect wherever it goes. It's so universally nourishing. It's so luscious. It's so beautiful that particularly the finer levels of creation, all the very, very fine levels of creation are fed by that product. And everybody has the experience of the source of creation. If you sleep, which we know people sleep, if you transition between different states of consciousness, you have the experience of the source of creation. So at those moments, that fine substance is being produced in the digestion. For those who have repeated experience, have a transcending meditation, for example, and have stabilized that experience of the source of creation, that material is being produced 24/7. It is the most nourishing thing that we can give to the collective. It is that one thing that is desired and adored and cherished and loved and received with grace all around universally. So the moon oversees the production of that material. So what we're doing is we're looking at the connection between our physiologies, our little points of expression and creation, and that big body that's out there just on the outskirts of the space of the earth. And what's happening is that nourishing substance, that nourishing, loving energy that we create, it's a subtle material, it's very, very subtle, is folding back into that heavenly body, which is responsible for its production in our bodies. So we're essentially making a self-referral loop with our awareness between our physical body and the moon. And we're nourishing the moon. It's going with reverence and gratitude and appreciation and love and honor. The moon is like this beautiful ancient thing compared to our bodies, right? It's this beautiful thing. And we know that for each one of us, our personal relationship with the moon is a little different. So this is, again, the value of us doing this as a collective, is that we are able to extend and expand our personal relationship with that heavenly body, with that celestial body, by sharing each other's strengths. By sharing each other's strengths, a kind of balancing takes place. An evening out takes place. Oh, I'm so, so glad that we're doing this healing, that this particular amazing and powerful, wonderful woman has brought this up, because I was actually thinking this morning about the situation and about her situation. And I was thinking, how could we smooth out long-term effects of choices and decisions, particularly in the field of the occupational Dharma. So, because we want it smooth for everyone, smooth for everyone. So, the first question, as you can see, I'm close my eyes and go back to source. First question coming up is, what can we do as a collective? How can we as a collective offer just the right impulse of intelligence to the moon that would be the most beneficial, the most satisfying, the most useful to our beautiful moon? And what's coming back, it's very cute. The first thing that came back was I got a visual image of us offering flowers. And then I realized, oh yeah, that quote that just came up, that forgiveness is the essence of a flower which has just been cut. So forgiveness. Forgiveness, 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 forgiveness. And this is beautiful because our moon, as you know, really is responsible for a lot of changing energy on our earth, right? It goes small, it goes full, it goes small, it goes waxes and wanes, and it moves around the entire 360-degree sphere once a month. So that's a big deal. Oh, and so the influence of the moon on individuals, and now I'm looking at a larger collective and tying in even to the next question. We're coming up on the next question. Is that, haha, she's saying, the lady asks, I have this picture of Soma Deva offering flowers to the Shiva lingam on her altar. It's so beautiful. Yes. Yes. Yes, it really is happening at a collective level of creation. It's not, you know, we're putting our attention, so we're aware of this relationship that's taking place between the Soma Deva and the moon. And so our attention and awareness enhances and supports the brilliance of that process, but it's not really being accomplished by our individuality. It's something that needed to be accomplished in the creation at this time, especially considering the dicey Jyotish coming up, which has to do with this lower node of the two nodes of the moon are going to be having all kinds of fun with us this year. And so to make a huge offering at this time, to be part of this great cosmic event of the Soma Deva offering Soma to the moon, it's like insurance. It's like we make the offering to this aspect of our celestial reality that really, really is going to need a lot of love and support and feel as good as possible in the coming months because of the natural, mathematical, measurable direction that it's taking. And knowing that the nature of each one of us as humans is that we're all going to be experiencing the influence in a different way. And that this also ties into one of the downloads that I got in preparation for this workshop, which I didn't get to share with you yesterday. But I think at this point it seems appropriate and so important. And that is that I was thinking about the energetic structure of the field around me. And I was just kind of exploring it and noticing what that energy feels like right now as we're moving out of winter and we're starting to come, we're less than a month away now from, or let's see, we're exactly, less than a month away from the spring equinox. So we're just like close. We're close to the 26 days from the spring equinox right now. So this is a transition time. And I was thinking to myself, wow, it's amazing that the feeling in the air, the feeling of being at this point in our yearly cycle is so, so different from the holidays. I always love the holidays, right? It's a great family time. For me, it usually starts with Diwali. There's always a big shift on Diwali. And then after that, it's like we go into this sort of blessed, like, holy time or something that for about a month to a month and a half, every day is just such a magical adventure. And then it kind of like winds down into January, and now we're coming closer to the spring equinox. And the transformation that occurred this year was just vast. And I was thinking, all of us are in this soup together. All of us are we're living within the structure that's created by our larger reality. We're living in it always. And how do we organize ourselves so that as that structure, that larger structure, constantly changes, and so dramatic this time. I feel as if it changed more extremely than it's ever changed before. It was so incredible. So I'm just bringing that question back to the source of creation. Just what do we do? How can we position ourselves to be so supportive to that larger organizing structure of creation And the answer that came back was producing more soma. So, oh, look, we came in a circle. What do you know? So, and of course, soma production increases as consciousness expands. So the big awakening that's taking place on Earth right now is part of creating a foundation to soften everyone's experience as we move forward. Yes?
Soma is like with love, right? So through the expression of love is Soma.
Oh, that's beautiful. So the point here, I'm so grateful to have Vedic scholars. Thank you. So he's saying that Soma is through love, and that, yeah, that it's connected and associated with that. So
we just send love to the...
Yeah, so his point is that to send Soma, you send love. And can we say also that we can bring in the quality of devotion as well, that when love is coupled with action, then, and that's devotion, right? Love is coupled with action, then the quality of love is enhanced, because it's not only something experienced at a deep level of the heart or the feeling structure of self, but it's also embodied at the relative level of creation, making it extra rich and beautiful. And what I'm seeing happening is that, thank you so much for bringing that up, because that element of love is now went its way. It's like wound its way, woven its way into this offering that's continuing to take place between the Soma Deva and the sun. That what we're doing basically in our webinar is we're performing the action. We're sitting here attending to it. And so the result is I'm seeing a reflection back now from the moon into the, we can say the Deva, or the intelligence of the digestive system. So the digestive Deva is receiving an upgrade. And it's receiving an upgrade based on its merits. Because what we've done is we've used our own capacity and ability to create that beautiful, enriching energy frequency, and we've put it where it counts, which is into the source of the creation, into the moon, from where that sweet energy comes. And so it's like a reward. It's like a reward, but with it, remember the razor's edge? The razor's edge is going to be with us, you guys. It's going to be with us probably this year. So there's like a responsibility that goes with it, that as the digestive systems are now receiving the transformation required to produce Soma in a more complete and continuous and refined manner, we also have the responsibility to continue to flow, to allow, to consciously desire that material not only nourishes our own self, but nourishes those aspects of the creation which are responsible for upholding the highest, responsible for upholding the evolutionary process, basically. All those aspects at the causal level of creation. The soul of the moon. So the moon has its physical form, but then it's got its celestial form, right? So it's responsible. We are responsible for keeping the channels open, for taking the dharmic action at the surface that allows that beautiful form of self to flow where it really counts, That means, and that kind of ties into the last question, it means in spite of the emotions that we might feel based on very big challenges that we've selected for ourselves in this lifetime, it's important to still allow that channel of softness to flow where it will promote the best evolutionary effect for everyone. That's Dharma. That's the action, or the words that promote the best evolutionary effect for everyone. You can see how we're so knit together with the great forms of creation, the great universal or celestial forms of the universe. We really are just part of this big process, this big being, the one big being, one being. Okay, here comes another cool question. This is such a lovely woman. I love her so much. She says, She's not sure her question goes with the theme of today, but could it be possible for us to put some attention on Venezuela? And I thought to myself, well, I'm not sure the question does go with the theme of today, but I want you all to know that I personally have been really concerned about Venezuela for like a really long time. I don't know, and I'm not a big, reading the news type of person, but what's been going on in Venezuela is so dire that even I knew about it. Even I know about it. And it's been ongoing for like a really long time. People are starving. They're just starving. They're starving to death, lots of infant deaths. It's terrible because the poverty, because the corruption, incredible corruption in the government. Socialist, it's a socialist government there. And it's an example of what can happen if a socialist government isn't able to function as a socialist government. Lots of people are dying, especially the innocent ones, especially the children are the main victims. They take cardboard boxes and they cut out little wings for the babies. It's so sad. So I'm looking, and you know me, we do is we take the symptom on the surface and we follow it back to its source. Like, what is behind that? We know that greed and selfishness is ultimately behind the type of corruption that affects governments. But I'm also looking at the people, because the collective somehow has a karma that they're there, that they're in that country at that time, that particular event is taking place. And I'm asking the source of creation in the form of the mother of creation, like, what is Ma trying to accomplish? What is divinity trying to accomplish in Venezuela? Always if there's a struggle or a suffering there, it's because divinity wants to embody itself better in that area, right? So we want to say, what is it? And one of the things that I'm seeing is that Venezuela also, Venezuela has turned its own angers around on itself for a long time. Another fact about Venezuela is that it's one of the world leaders in murders with guns, I think. Yeah, it's like a world leader of, like right at the top of the list of homicides with guns. So the people have been unhappy for a really long time, and they've been taking their unhappiness out on themselves for a really long time. And what I feel is going on there is behind that. I'm not looking at we can point fingers at governments and things like that, but what I'm looking at is the incredible innocence that when things get really, really rough, what the people are doing is they're blaming themselves. And they're taking it on, they're taking the energies on themselves, and then they're suffering. And essentially what I'm seeing happening is Venezuela could use the download that came out of this webinar, which is to, rather than going, oh, I'm so upset, I'm so angry, this is so unfair, bitterness and resentment and all that, to say, okay, these are the energies, this is the emotional structure which is giving me a kind of power or energy to do something great, to do something creative. And then how do I channel it through Dharma? How does it come through the bull of Dharma, right? Through the leg of truth, in order to promote an effect on the surface that's really evolutionary and life-supporting. So what we're doing is, our collective is bringing the heart of Dharma to Venezuela, bringing the heart of Dharma in there. And really, we have, through our own physiologies, through our personal alignment with that bull of Dharma, have the heart of Dharma, we've been able to stabilize that particular level of intelligence, those qualities of wisdom, which are associated with really, truly knowing how Dharma works, and then that is offered to the soul of the people of Venezuela. And just as I was describing a few minutes ago, how we're in an energetic environment here, which is the coming into spring environment that feels completely different from the holidays, right? So Venezuela has its own energetic environment, very delicate. As we put attention there, it's so delicate, it's so tender. I feel as if the collective energy structure of Venezuela is just like on the edge. It's on the edge of existence, of its own existence. And so we had to do the healing for the refinement of balance before we could do this, because it's like approaching a newborn infant who's very ill. You don't go in and start just pushing energies around. You can't. You can't. This is us as a collective working more like a surgeon who works concisely. Before, some of our work has been a little more, bouncy, but now we don't bouncy. We have to go in very delicately to Venezuela. And the love is important. We're coming first with compassion. First with compassion and tenderness. And then the Soma helps nourish or nurture the causal level of the physiologies of the people of Venezuela. So that's the next thing that's happening is the Deva, the Soma Deva, is shooting that beam of Soma off to the moon. It bounces off the moon and it comes back to Venezuela. It multiplies as it comes back, and it's able to feed or heal the causal level of the physiologies of the people of Venezuela. I'm just getting chills. Oh, and so I just need to hold silence for 1 second here. Hang on. I'm reminded of the story of Solzhenitsyn. I'm not sure I said that right. My Polish people here, my Europeans, can tell me Solzhenitsyn. Anyway, he was a communist and all forward for the Communist Party until he was captured and put in the Gulag archipelago, and then he had to live in that place for something like 7 years. And he noticed that some people did amazingly well in that place. A lot of people didn't do so well. A lot of people did very poorly. But some people did amazingly well. And he noticed that the ones who did surprisingly well were those who had been in some sort of spiritual position before they went into the Gulag. And he also he started noticing things about these people. And one of the things about them was that they tended to not buy into the overarching heaviness, oppressive attitude that kind of sat on the camp. They didn't tend to buy into it. They tended to rise above it. And they managed to locate their own happiness within themselves and produce their happiness from within themselves in spite of the outer circumstances. He came out of that experience to write his book about the Gulag archipelago, which literally, basically single-handedly brought down the structure that created the atrocity that killed over 150 million people. So good for him.
Is that a prison?
Yeah, it was a prison camp, yeah. Yeah. So, yes.
Something that seems to come out of this session is if you have like a tightness in the stomach, instead of just sending love there, you send it to the moon and it bounces back.
Nice. It's beautiful.
It's people
Oh, yes.
Like
they can also, that's such
like
a...
This is an added technology that came up.
Yes. So the point is that he feels that there's an added technology that came out today that if a person feels, oh, thank you, I should have known that before I did those anxiety videos, those healings for anxiety. But for anybody who has anxiety experiences too, if you feel that tightness in the stomach, which is where anxiety tends to sit, right?
Those fierce feelings.
Fear, yeah, and the fierce feeling. He was saying the fierce feeling that we're having today too, that that I was having anyway. That it can be a way to refine and soften and promote the evolution of that feeling, because it is kind of a, when something's sitting in some part of the physiology, it's like a thread, it's like a form of creation. It can, as a thread or a channel of consciousness, it can go out to the moon where it's softened by the soma producing aspects of the moon, and then it can come back to the body in a softened condition, in a healing, nourishing condition. And it can also go to the people of Venezuela. And what's happening now is a download for all the people of Venezuela to receive the healing that we all just experienced, and for them to be able to be one of the great, oh, that's interesting, nurturers of the cosmic bodies. Now what's really interesting to me about that is that I understand that a lot of the people of South America find, oh, Solzhenitsyn. Oh, thank you. I was hoping it was you. I was hoping, anonymous you, that you would tell me how to pronounce that. So, Solzhenitsyn, he said. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Right. That, where was I? That, oh yes, that the people of South America, many of them trace their heritage to the sun. They believe themselves to be descendants of the sun. Now, we've already talked in previous webinars about how all of our planets and all of our celestial bodies have life force on them, life forces of various types and varieties, but it's beautiful that they have already in their tradition a connection, a really intimate connection to the celestial field, and that the nodes of the moon, which are our friends this year that we're going to be working with, they arise in forms that are a little bit challenging because of the interaction between the moon and the sun. So what's happening is Venezuela is receiving a download of information to make just a very gentle, very, very tender, slight adjustment to the overarching energetic soup in which that country resides, to allow it to sit in a position that harmonizes and integrates the relationship between the sun and the moon. And that's like a whole country that's standing ready to basically help the whole. Here's this poor country, like they're in worse condition almost than anybody, right? And what they're doing is from within their own being able to rise up. We'll see. Watch the news, you guys. Let's see what happens with Venezuela this year. I bet. In order to nurture the relationship between the sun and the moon, to affect an evolutionary transformation on the relationship of the sun and the moon at the point of the nodes. That's when eclipses occur, right? When the node is there, when they're crossing across each other's path. It helps all of us. It helps the whole world. So beautiful. And of course, we can join them. We can hold up our sticks. We can. The story that Krishna, the mountain was going to come down and crush the people. So Krishna went and he held up the mountain all by himself. And the people were like, oh, cool, I'll help. And they went and they put their sticks, and they helped hold up the mountain. So we can help Venezuela hold up the mountain. We can be like almost in a parental role. Our group is playing a parental role. And let me tell you, there is a big connection being made right now between our healing collective and those individuals in Venezuela who stand in positions of energy healers, shamans, whatever, positions like that. Is a very nice, the channels of communication are open, you guys, right now. This is we're joining together in this collective to support. It's a big support. Thank you. Beautiful. Looking at my time, so many questions. Oh boy. One lady sent a YouTube video. I can't watch that right now, but we'll watch it later. My heart is melting. One lady's heart is melting. Is just anybody and everybody able to receive these healings despite our state of mind? Yes. Everybody receives. on the finest level of self, because that's the level where all of our beings overlap with each other. And so that level is active, really deeply activated and enlivened by the work that we're doing. But then what happens is, if you might recall, or if you see from yesterday's video, there are these entanglements of karma that sit at more of an astral level. So here's the source of creation where everything is one. And then here's the finest level of expression of self where we are conjoined, basically. We're all, it's like a big ocean of self, a big ocean of intelligence and creativity. And then here's the astral level where the web of life resides, and that's where the entanglements will tend to sit. And so what happens is, at this level, everyone receives. But then as the energy of divinity rises up through the layers of expression, if it hits some of those entanglements on the way up, that can sort of change the way it gets, the healing comes to the surface. For some people, it can be blocked entirely. I was describing those entanglements yesterday also as blind spots, because those are spots where consciousness isn't flowing. Oh, there was a whole healing yesterday too for part of the web of life where consciousness wasn't flowing. You might want to check that out toward the end of that one. So the answer is both yes and no, that yes, everyone receives at a very deep level of being, but not everyone realizes it. And so if the lack of full recognition is there, that can make it a little more difficult for people to live the effects. But nonetheless, what we're doing is like dyeing the cloth, which I also talked about yesterday. We're creating layers and layers and layers. Another question. Hi, Dorothy. I joined late. Although it's not the magnitude of Venezuela, did you speak to how you use your body? Yes, I did. Oh, no names. Yes, I did. That was the first thing that I did. That was the first topic I covered. Thank you for asking. This is the lady who asked the question about the mirror. Well, no worries. It's for later. Okay, that's for the YouTube video. All right, finally. Yesterday I talked about David Buckland's blog on nestled realities. And so I'm not sure, David, are you here? I don't know if you're here with me today, because I think he had something else he had to do. But if not, with his permission, I will put that link, with his permission. I'll put that link in our follow-up letter so everybody can read that wonderful blog, because it's quite fabulous. And then here's a lady. Oh, her question was about, here's a lady who just lost her job. Completely not from her own. It was, boy, she was working for an organization and the organization went belly up big time. And so she lost her job, and now she's like really not sure where she's going or what she's going to do. And so, I think it would be good, we still have a couple minutes to spend a couple minutes just talking about vocational Dharma, because that's one of the major ways that we think that I'd say the collective tends to think about Dharma. When people think about Dharma, they think about the service that you perform for the world and so forth. It's a really common way to think about it. So, okay. So when the path forward is not clear, there are several different ways that we can approach refining up our sense of which is the right direction to take. And the more light we can shine on the path, the better. So if it's me, one of the first things I like to do is I like to reference Jyotish. Jyotish is an ancient form of astrology, and it's profound and complete. And there is one of the areas of the circle of the universe around you, one of those areas is like more significant for your occupation than others. So it doesn't hurt. That's just on a super. Oh yeah, oh, he's saying great, send the blog spot. Thank you, my dear. So we're gonna send that blog about the nesting realities, good stuff. And oh look, somebody's already put in the chat for anybody who wants to copy it straight out of the chat. Good job, everybody, you're so resourceful, yay. So, yes. So Jyotish, Jyoti means light. and it shines a light that is consistent and measurable. And you know, in my webinars, I've started actually referencing celestial bodies and things happening in the universe more than I used to. And one of the reasons is that's a resource. So that's number one. The next thing, so that's one thing, you can grab that light and shine it, start shining it from that angle. Then you want to shine the light from some other angles as well. And one of those other angles is here. So you might have heard me say in the past that the heart area is the area of your being that always tells you the truth. And so you can use your hand chakras over the heart. That's one way to help focus your attention really concisely into the area. And then just ask where the joy is. What we want to do is that service, which is so self-nourishing that it never makes you tired and it never creates stress and it never pulls you down, that you can do it all the time and always be uplifted and always uplift others, right? That's like the ideal dharmic profession, is when you're doing the thing that just nourishes you to the depths of your soul and also helps others. So what I would do is, I'm putting myself in your position, is I'd get my hands up there and then I would just start scanning like a body scan, but this time instead of a body scan, scanning through behavior. Scanning through all the things I do, all the services I already perform. And I would even think back to maybe when I was little, because sometimes the play that children play is a reflection of that which is most evolutionary and brings them most fulfillment. Most fulfillment. You want a profession that sparks joy in you, because when you engage in that profession, you will naturally contribute something of tremendous value to the environment. So that's another measure. It's a reliable measure. It's an inner subjective measure, but it's a real measure. Something I can, that's the theme of the blog spot. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks. Thank you. I'm being careful not to say anybody's names. So that's a subjective measure. And then the other thing is the alignment that took place in this session with the heart of Dharma and our hearts is going, it upgraded the wisdom level of this heart area. Because sometimes the thing that is actually the most rewarding and enriching to you might seem maybe a little scary at first, or it might seem like, for example, when I was little, I received intuitions that I should do this work. And because I was little, I didn't understand. And back then, I didn't even know it. And the word energy healer wasn't even in my world. So what I thought I was being asked to do was to go into the medical field. So I kept getting these intuitions that I should heal people. And I thought, my experience was I went to the doctor and I had to pee in a cup. And so I was like, I do not want to do that, okay? I'm not going to be the one with those cups, no way. So I was like, forget it, you know? So every time it came to me, I kept pushing it away, pushing it away. It wasn't until I became a grown-up and things changed and our world changed and I evolved and all that. Then the message came and it was a little clearer what I was really being asked to do. And even at that point, I was like, well, how on earth? But then, of course, as soon as I asked the question, the answer came. And it just, at that point, it evolved naturally from there on. But the reason I say that is sometimes when you first get the impulse of what you should do, it's not necessarily completely clear. And it may seem like something you don't want to do. So I'm just throwing that out there. Like, don't give up. If you keep asking and the same answer keeps coming back, you might want to explore a little more deeply, or maybe ask the question from a different angle or something like that. So that's my suggestion on the occupation. Thank you all so much for being with me today. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I love you all. I love you. Thank you. And I'll look forward to our next webinar. The name of it isn't on the tip of my tongue, but anyway, we'll be in touch with everybody. And yeah, God bless you all, and may you walk the razor's edge with grace as we go through this coming year. So grateful to everyone. Oh, look, lots of thank yous coming in. Okay, bye everybody. See you again soon. Bye.